Good afternoon. My name is Dwight Armstrong. Welcome back to Girded with Truth. Um, we have a very interesting series for you this week. It would be a biblical response to Halloween, because I know today actually is Halloween. So we're going to respond to you guys in terms of Halloween. Should you participate? Should you not? How should we then approach that whole situation? Now, when we hear the word Halloween, we think about scary decorations, costume parties, costume children at the door repeating the idiom trick or treat, expecting us to shower them with candies, treats, all those different stuff. But looking past all the excitement and the candy, have we ever stopped to ask ourselves, where did this practice come from? Is it some just American practice that we imported here into Trinidad and Tobago? Or is it created by some large corporation just to increase their profits at the end of, every year, to increase their bottom line? Perhaps there's actually a better question to ask. Should a professing Christian be one participating in the festivities of Halloween? Honestly, we cannot make that decision for you. That's between you and God. All we can really do is we equip you guys with the historical and the biblical information you need to make that decision that you require. Now today I'll be going into most of the historical aspect of Halloween. It will not be done by my personal perspective or what my opinions are. I'll be reading a lot today because that's where the information will be coming from. What is the historical evidence, or what is the historical accounts of Halloween, where it come from, and so forth. So I'll be diving a lot into that today, and I'll be reading a lot. So bear with me. All the sources will be posted in the description below, so you guys can go check them out yourself. As primarily mainstream sources we would be using, some of which come from books as well too. I mean, if you have the time, you could read the books as well to go along with it. But most of the links will be posted there, and I'll be reading a lot from where those sites and stuff are. Okay, so here goes. The history of Halloween. Halloween is celebrated on the 31st of October every year and has been for the past 2,000 years. Historical sources indicate that the practice of Halloween finds its origin in the Celtic festival of Samhain. May not be pronouncing that correct. This is a day that marks the end of summer and harvest and the beginning of a dark, cold winter. It's also the time of the year that's often associated with human death. Interestingly, the World Encyclopedia states this: every recorded civilization has created some form of ritual observance focused on what happens to people when they die, where they go, and how the living should best honor those who have passed on, or respond to the dead who seem unwilling or unable to move on. Interesting to note, countries around the world today celebrate Halloween in one form or another, from Mexico's Day of the Dead to China's Tomb Sweeping Day. The modern observance of Halloween in countries such as the United States and Canada, where this tradition is most popular, share in this ancient tradition, even though some aspects of the holiday are relatively recent development, but can be traced back to the Celtic festival of Samhain. Now, Samhain was not just an observance of seasonal change. It was believed by the ancient Celts to be liminal, or an in-between place, a time where the veil between human and spiritual realms are lifted, allowing for easier passage between them. Point to note there that it is not so much of the physical going into the spiritual, but the spiritual coming into the physical. And because of this, the Druids found this to be an auspicious time to practice divination, because at that time the connection between the spiritual and the physical was usually stronger. They believed that spirits, both kind and malevolent, could act with more powerful agency on the human world. In addition to the practice of divination, historians believe that the festival of Samhain included animal sacrifices, dancing, and the donning of costumes, typically made from animal skins and more possibly animal heads. Now, coming up into our modern times here. The transition from Samhain to Halloween actually began in the 5th century, and this is by the Catholic Church itself. They found it easier to convert the Celts by incorporating certain pagan celebrations into their calendars, but the old practices never actually died out. The practice of wearing masks derived from guising. That's basically what they used to do back then, is they had what is called bonfires, which we now get the term bonfires. So all the animal sacrifices they did, they would burn the bones together, called bonfires, where we get bonfires now. Guising is when they would take the ashes from those bonfires and paste it along their faces to kind of disguise themselves. In fact, this guising is where we get the practice of wearing masks now from. That's within Halloween, that is. The purpose of putting the ashes on your face was primarily because it was noted that during Samhain, you would find the dead walking among the living. And what they wanted though, or if you had aught, or you had some sort of trouble, or you did some sort of ill or evil to someone who had died or passed on, what you want to do is you want to disguise yourself. So if you see that person walking, you can then actually determine, okay, I did this person something wrong. He or she may come back to do me something, wrong as well too, but I'm now disguised, so they will not be able to recognize me. So hence the reason why they actually had the guising. The practice of trick-or-treat is what we're going to next. The practice of trick-or-treating actually came from the practice of souling. This is the practice where the poor in those days would then go from house to house asking for a soul cake, and in repayment for the soul cake they would then pray for you, right? So they wanted something to eat, they would go, they would ask for a soul cake, they would get the soul cake, and they would pray for you in return. Now modern day Halloween has then evolved then, because Halloween actually got to a place or a point in modern times where it was associated with vandalism. Meaning to say, like, they would find more vandalism during that time of Halloween, that date itself of Halloween. And what one of the women did within the community is that they began to hold a party for most of the people or young people, so that they could actually burn themselves out with regards to energy, so they don't have enough energy to do the vandalism at the end of the day, when things are actually winding down. That then evolved to the point where the people would then go around and say trick or treat. So if you would give them a treat, that would then exempt you from being tricked on later on. So hence the reason why you would now have trick or treating. So souling then came up to the trick or treating aspect of things. Alright, the whole practice of the jack-o'-lantern, that came from old Irish tale. Jack apparently was, or old Jack, or stingy Jack, that's basically what I used to call him. What he did is he actually tricked the devil. He was an old con man, and he tricked the devil into getting out of hell, but he could not enter into heaven. That's the tale. And what he did is he roamed around with, actually it wasn't even a pumpkin, it was a turnip, and he would then carve out the internals of the turnip, and he actually had an ember from hell. So he actually had that within his lamp, and he would walk around with that as his form of light. But that then translated into people, or the people who would go out souling, what they would do is they would carve the internals of a turnip and carve a face into it, and then put a candle in there so that all the evil spirits that would be walking around while they're souling would be warded off. That then evolved, or then adapted to the pumpkin, primarily because the pumpkin was easier for them to carve. So because the pumpkin was easier to carve, it then went from the turnip, which then became the pumpkin. So hence the reason why we actually find that practice there. Okay, so we've seen all along the line there where historically these things were based on aspects of ward of different spirits and whatnot. Interestingly enough, right, is that the practices changed a lot, but it was still always based on and rooted in paganism, witchcraft, and idolatry. Now, I just want to pause there for a minute and just add one particular point, which I believe I would have mentioned before in a video a while back. There is nothing inherently evil Meaning to say that we can't pick up a rock and a pumpkin and say this is an evil rock or an evil pumpkin, you know. This is the devil's pumpkin, this is the devil's rock, or whatever it may be. It just doesn't work like that, you know. God didn't make anything inherently evil. However, there are systems, there are practices, there are things basically that are inherent, that are evil, because of the intent of it. As we can see there, that Halloween itself was never really intended for, yeah, let's just go out and have fun, you know, get candy and whatever, but was always intended as a place where a higher level of divination and witchcraft can then be practiced because of what they believe to be the merging of times there. All right, you can get deeper and deeper into it, but I really don't want to go too long in terms of this video. All right, so to end off or to conclude, many of you may be asking, but Dwight, that happened a long time ago. We really believe in those spiritual things anymore. In fact, today is all about the dressing up, you know, it's about the children, you know, where they can dress up in a little costume, go and have fun with each other. It has no spiritual stuff in it. We can at least let the kids go out and have fun, right? Because it's just them dressing up and going out with other little children and giving candies together, right? Now, that may be so. But to answer that question, we really can't do it based on our personal opinion or what we feel is right or wrong. Our benchmark really and truly is the Bible. That's our standard. That's what tells us if it's right or if it's wrong. The Word of God. And that is what we will be using as our point of reference. Okay? I hope this was really informative to some of you. I would put these sources in there so that the video doesn't become too long-winded with just me reading. You guys can take a read. You guys can actually look at these sources, see what it says, jump into some of the books. It may take a while, but you know, you can read much more about it as well too, some of the histories of Halloween. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Tomorrow we'll be more so comparing it biblically, what basically happened there, or what do we do with regards to some of these things. Right.